into things. I encourage you to ask any questions along the way, or hopefully we can have time after. If not, I am going to share my email and work phone number, so I'm super open to questions. So feel free to ask, whether now or later on. Mari can always pass them on to me too if we run out of time. Cool, so let's get started. Um, yeah, I'd like to just get started by asking what comes to mind when you think about managing your diabetes with nutrition? What does that look like for you, or what thoughts come up for you? Anyone feel like sharing? Love to hear.
Mm, Maybe like go ahead and something that might come to mind with diabetes. I've got a lot of like questions like um, like where do I start? Different things like that when it comes to diabetes. I've gotten different questions from patients like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just if you don't feel like sharing, that's totally fine. Maybe just kind of think about what feelings come to mind, like what with Mari sharing some of the questions she's gotten. To me, that kind of sounds like maybe it feels overwhelming sometimes, like maybe what you've heard with nutrition,
With nutrition,
what you
what you
oh, sorry, I have an echo. Okay, cool. Maybe what you've heard with nutrition feels overwhelming or stressful or just scary, or maybe it feels exciting and hopeful. So just kind of ponder to yourself what feelings come up. You can feel free to share them in the chat, but for time's sake, I'm going to move on. Okay, so when we think about diabetes, there's a lot that goes into treatment. And so I just share this to kind of think about, I'm sure through going through this class, you've thought about like, there are so many different parts to treating diabetes. I think sometimes we can look at it as just like, it's either nutrition or no nutrition, but there's so much that goes into it and they're all important. So medication, sleep and stress management, nutrition is huge. Uh, Exercise and movement and just overall like mindset, stress management, support systems, they all impact diabetes management. And so I kind of like to think about managing diabetes as this four-legged stool. So if you've ever sat at a stool before, or if you could just think of a chair, there's four legs on a chair and they all support the chair. So you can think of yourself as the chair. And what would happen if one of these legs of the chair fell off is you'd be wobbly and not standing up straight. And that's how we can think of diabetes. So that this is just to show that everything matters. Nutrition isn't above movement. Movement isn't above medications. It's all important. So they all play a role and are equally important. And it's going to look different for each of us, but just like to use this example before moving in. And this hopefully will kind of just instill in you that nutrition isn't, it's not, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's all these other factors that impact nutrition. So in sharing all this, it might feel a little bit overwhelming, but no, you have other support systems, other ways of managing diabetes too that you have talked about in this class. Yeah. As we start to discuss nutrition in more detail, I like to bring up just this reminder that what I'm sharing with you is information, not rules. So I think a lot of times when we think about nutrition, we think of it as like these hard and fast rules, like I can't eat this, but I can't eat this, or this is off limits and this isn't. And those are rules. And honestly, rules don't really serve us in the nutrition world. They make us feel restricted, they make things scary and overwhelming. And then a lot of times when we're trying to follow rules, we just get to a place where we're like, forget it. It's too many rules. So, what I'm here to share with you, everything that we talk about today, is just information. You can take it or leave it. You can start small with it. It's not rules. You're just informing your care. Yeah, so just keep that in mind as we continue the discussion. Okay, so there's two kind of different types of eating, and I think especially with diabetes, you can kind of fall into these two camps. So you can be a mindful eater or you can be a restrictive eater. And so let's talk about the differences. So a mindful eater is in charge of their eating. They are opting for total nourishment. They're opting for information to be filled with information and guided by information. They opt for variety, balance, to have a flexible view of eating. And they also are looking for pleasure in eating and joy in eating. A restrictive eater wants to be in control, wants to diet, wants to have hard and fast rules, maybe views food as a temptation, maybe is sought after perfectionism or a perfect way of eating a perfect diet, is maybe a little more rigid in their diet and their eating patterns, and is maybe filled with shame because it's overwhelming and you can't do everything. And so, do we see the differences there? I think they're pretty clear, but in looking at these two types of eating, which eater are you now, and which do you want to be? So you definitely can share in the chat if you feel like it, like maybe where you want to be. Do you want to be a restrictive eater or would you rather be a mindful eater? And I think it's just important to think about that as we talk about the information that I'm going to continue to share in this class. Like, which eater are you now? Are you a restrictive eater, but you want to be a mindful eater? Are you already a mindful eater? Just I encourage you to ponder about that. And I share all this to bring up this huge topic in nutrition, which is mindset matters. So again, if we're going into learning all this information and viewing it as rules versus information, it's going to feel overwhelming, it's going to feel hard and just not doable. And so I just want you all to be able to tune into your mind and tune in to your thoughts and kind of just bring some awareness. Are your thoughts more negative or are they more positive? Because the positive ones are going to serve you more. And so here are just some reminders about mindset. You're capable of managing your diabetes. You can use nutrition as part of your management plan without having to overhaul your diet and have strict food rules. I encourage you to tune into your thoughts. What are you saying to yourself when you eat, when you're grocery shopping, when you're preparing a meal out at a restaurant? Does it have a negative tone? And if so, how can you challenge that? How can you make it more positive? There are no good or bad foods. If you take away anything from this class today, I want you to remember there are no good and bad foods. There are foods that are more nourishing than others and have more nutrients in them and are more health promoting, but there's room for all foods in your diet. We're human. We're gonna enjoy some cake at a birthday party with our loved ones, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad food. We want to shift towards these more health promoting foods, but there's room for it all. And we need to ditch the good and bad thinking because it doesn't really serve us. So the goal is balance, variety, and moderation. So remember those key words. And to help you remember and help you kind of maybe get out of that negative mindset, I want to share some mantras with you. These are things that you could write in your phone or write on a notepad or sticky notes or just kind of practice saying in your head. So this first one is, I am in this for the long haul. I can learn to trust and nourish myself without restriction. There is no perfect way of eating. I will aim to choose habits that feel supportive for me, but perfection is not the goal. Last one here is change is messy and that's okay. I might regret some choices, but I can move past that and I choose to let go of the guilt and shame. So I encourage you to take these with you or come up with your own that are along the same lines and feel encouraging and supportive to you. So today, as we start to dive into nutrition, we're going to go through this mindful eating cycle. And I pulled this from a really cool book. It's called I think it's called Mindful Eating for Diabetes. I could have just butchered that. I don't know. But basically, we're going to be talking about what does mindful eating look like for diabetes, because mindful eating is really important for just us humans in general. And then when we have different chronic conditions like diabetes, tuning into our mind is going to be really helpful. Having that mind body connection is huge. And so we're going to go through this cycle and how it pertains to diabetes. I'm going to pause for a second though, because I feel like I've been talking a lot. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so the first part of this cycle is thinking about why do I eat? So you can ask yourself, like, why am I eating right now? Why do I eat food throughout the day? So the big one is hunger. Your body signals to you with a hunger hormone. Yes, we have hormones in our body that tell us when we're hungry and when we're full. Our hunger hormone is called ghrelin. Our fullness hormone is called leptin. And so one of the reasons, probably the primary reason that we eat is because our body signals to us that we're hungry. And this can show up differently depending on the level of hunger that we're at and just each individual. But a lot of times, you know, you're hungry because your stomach growls. Maybe you have an empty feeling in your stomach. Maybe you get a headache. Maybe you're nauseous. Maybe you're tired. You know, you're hungry. Another reason why we might eat is out of boredom. So sometimes we choose to eat because we want a distraction. It becomes something you can do for a little while, take up time. And while that's okay here and there, long term, this can turn into consistent overeating and create a lot of discomfort and kind of just impact our body as a whole and impact our blood sugar levels long term. So yeah, another reason why we may eat is to punish ourselves. So if we think back to the different types of eater, if you're more, I believe I named it the restrictive eater, you might choose to eat based on rules and numbers, and this can lead you to, number one, being disconnected from your body, but also creating a poor relationship with food overall. And so you might eat to punish yourself, like, oh, I ate a cookie last night. Now I'm gonna only eat salad all day, even if that's not what my body's telling me what to eat. And so sometimes we punish ourselves. We also eat for nourishment. And this is a really positive reason to eat. We know that our body needs certain nutrients, and sometimes we need to be thoughtful about our nutrition to have our body function at its best. And diabetes is a condition that really thrives off of being thoughtful with nutrition. A person that eats for nourishment desires to feel good from the inside out. Self-care is at the forefront of your mind. So I would say when we're thinking about the two different eaters, our restrictive eater is someone that might eat out of boredom and might eat to punish themselves. And our mindful eater eats according to their body's hunger cues and eats for nourishment. So next, moving on to when do I eat? How am I supposed to know when should I eat, when should I not eat? Sometimes I feel like I don't know when I when I should eat or not. Maybe I don't have that trust or partnership with my body. I can't really tune in. So, how do I do that? How do I know when to eat? So, we can start with tuning into those hunger cues. So, like I said, back here, we have a hunger hormone. It's called ghrelin and it shows up in many different ways, but here are some examples. So, hunger is our body's way of telling us when we need to fuel our body or when we need nourishment. So, we can start to tune in, we can eat according to our hunger cues. So, we can listen to our body. So, some signs of hunger is maybe your stomach's growling, you have a hollow feeling, an empty feeling, maybe you feel queasy, maybe you feel really exhausted, maybe you're having trouble focusing, maybe you're shaky, lightheaded. Those are all signs. We all have different signs. I encourage you to think about when you're hungry, what does that look like for you, and tune into that. Um, Sometimes we're not super tuned into that because we've gotten used to distracting our body, distracting that hunger. Like maybe we've been trained, oh, I'm feeling hungry right now. I don't think I should eat. Let me like distract myself and try to push away hunger. That's not serving us. Our body has those signals for a reason, and we need to tune into them. And the more we tune into them, the more we're in tune with our body and having that body trust, which is truly mindfulness. So, what distracts us from hunger? For many of us, the awareness of hunger gets pushed to the side by emotional eating. So maybe we're reaching for food when we're really sad or angry or frustrated. If we are constantly ignoring cues, maybe we're really busy or we have food rules that tell us, oh, I can't eat at this time of day. Or maybe there's social circumstances where we don't have the ability to listen to our hunger in that moment. So this is all important to start to be aware of. How do I know when to eat? That's like the big question. So this right here, it's a scale. It's called a hunger fullness scale. It is from 1 to 10. 10 is 1 and 10 are the two extremes. So 10 is like overstuffed. I ate so far past fullness that I feel sick. Maybe I feel nauseous. Maybe I feel bloated. I just don't feel good because I just way overate. Number 1 is I am so hungry. Maybe my blood sugar is so low. I've never seen it that low. Maybe I'm tired, I'm dizzy, I feel like I could faint or fall over. And then we have everywhere in the middle. We have a comfortable level of fullness that's satisfied, number 7. Maybe we're like starting to get hungry. We could use a snack. We're at a 4. So I encourage you to use this scale. I believe Mari sent out this scale in an email for you all to have. I encourage you to like put it on your phone or print it out. And when you go into a meal or start to think about eating, you can assign yourself a number. Am I a number 2? Am I super hungry? Have I maybe skipped a meal and I'm just so hungry right now and I need something really nourishing and filling? Or am I at a 4 and I just need a snack right now to maybe hold me over until my next meal? Or am I at a 10 right now? Am I overstuffed, but for some reason I still want to eat? I encourage you to start to bring this into your everyday life with eating. It can bring a lot of awareness to your hunger and fullness cues and those hormones that are communicating information to us. Okay, so next, what do I eat? This is the biggest question I feel like with any health condition, but especially diabetes. Like there's so much information out there. Maybe your doctor has handed you a handout. Maybe you've Googled things. Maybe you're on social media looking for things. Maybe your friend told you something and your mom told you something else. Like there's a lot of stuff out there, and it can be really, really overwhelming. And so my goal in sharing all this is that are communicating information. This is the biggest question I feel like diabetes. Are we good? Was someone asking a question? Okay, Cool. Maybe that was just on my end. I don't know if anyone else heard that. Okay. Yeah, so we can get into the nutrition piece or this actual food piece, like what's supposed to be on my plate, what am I supposed to be eating for meals and snacks. So to do that, a great starting place is looking at this plate here. And so you can look at this plate. This is called the eat what you love what you eat for diabetes plate. It's from a really awesome dietitian and doctor combo that wrote this book that I'm talking about. And this can be a really great visual to start with. Like, what should my plate look like? So we have some low carbohydrate vegetables. We have grains and carbohydrate containing vegetables in this quadrant. We have protein, which is another quarter of our plate. We have milk and yogurt or dairy. There's room for sweets and desserts. I bet you've never seen that on a diabetes plate, but there is room for that. There's room. And then we have fruit. So we're going to walk through this because maybe you're hearing these terms and you're like, what does that mean? So let's go through it. Okay, so carbs. So this is referring to this yellow part of the plate. So when we think about carbs, we can kind of separate them into two types. So we have whole grains or we have starches. And so we want to fill about a quarter of our plate with these carbohydrate rich foods. So whole grains are going to be foods like whole grain bread, brown rice, quinoa, let's see, farro, oats. There's so many if you look up whole grains. Actually, I have another resource for you that Mari sent in the email, and I believe she's been putting stuff in the chat. I have a food list for you that lists out tons of examples of all these foods that we're going to go through. So feel free to reference that as you're visualizing this plate. But yeah, so this yellow portion can be whole grains or it can be starches. So starches are like high carbohydrate vegetables. So we can think of these foods as potatoes. We can think about corn, peas, sweet potatoes, butternut squash. Those are all, they're vegetables, but they have high carbohydrates. So we want to fill a quarter of our plate with those kinds of foods. It can be either or, maybe half and half to fill in this quadrant. You can mix it up, try new things, use that list to try new things. But yeah, these are going to be our carb heavy foods. So kind of those traditional like breads, rices, things like that. Any questions about carbs? Okay. So then this big portion, this is half of our plate, this green section is fiber rich carbs. So high fiber vegetables is kind of what we're looking for. And you might be confused, like, I thought there were vegetables over here. What's the difference? These vegetables, if we go back to this yellow portion, these are high carbohydrate vegetables. So yes, a potato and corn, those are veggies, but they still have higher carbohydrate amounts and they're considered high carb foods. We're talking about low carbohydrate vegetables for half of our plate. So this is going to be things like mushrooms, broccoli, bell pepper, carrots. Again, you can refer to that list that I sent and that Mari put in the chat and in the email. It's going to give you some really good ideas. And the reason why we want to fill half our plate with these is because these foods contain fiber, and fiber is like this awesome tool for our blood sugar. When we're talking about food, fiber is your blood sugar is like best friend because fiber helps slow everything down. So when we eat high carb foods like bread, it's getting absorbed into our bloodstream like that. It's a simple carb, it's simple, it goes straight into our bloodstream, which makes our blood pressure go like this. When we eat fiber, fiber is kind of there to slow down the party, slow everything down from being absorbed too quickly. It helps aid in being digested slower, which lowers our blood sugar, makes everything way more stable. So we're not spiking when we're eating fiber. So that's why fiber is important. It's also important for our gut health and our digestion in general to have healthy, regular bowel movements. There's a lot of perks of fiber. Next, another best friend of blood sugar is protein, and especially high quality protein products. So protein is another nutrient that is going to slow everything down in our body. So protein helps foods not spike our blood sugar. It slows everything down. It takes a lot longer to be digested, which is how it slows everything down. It's also really important to support our hormones, which if you all are familiar with insulin, which is really important for diabetes, it helps our insulin work better and just operate better. It helps support with recovery of our muscles that are working so hard every day just to keep us alive. It helps heal us. So if we have any wounds on the inside or out, if we've been sick, protein is our best friend. So some high quality protein sources are going to be leaner protein, so less high fat proteins. So we can think of fish as being a great example. Eggs are a great example. Red meat can be included in there. We want to go for leaner red meat options. Poultry like chicken or turkey. Beans and rice is like a classic plant-based combo for high quality protein. And then tofu is also a really high quality protein, or just soy in general. So like soy milk, soybeans, edamame, things like that. Any questions about protein? And again, that list that I keep referring to, I'm a broken record, is going to have a ton of examples for you to choose from. And there's plant-based options. There's different meat options showing like lower fat protein sources too. So I encourage you to use it. Okay, our next component is fat. And so fat isn't really listed on here. And that's because fat is kind of like an underlier in our foods. A lot of times fat is kind of not seen on our plate. Like we don't have a big glob of whatever our fat source is. It's usually like cooked into our vegetables, cooked into our meat. It's kind of, kind of like to think of this dotted line as like fat. So we can think of fat as we have animal-based fats and non-animal-based fats. And what we want to aim for is more of the non-animal-based fats. Those are going to be really nourishing to us. They're going to help us support the absorption of a ton of vitamins and minerals, which we need for our body to function properly. Again, it's going to keep us full and satiated. So I like to think of if you've ever eaten a salad, just straight up like lettuce and veggies, no dressing on there whatsoever, you're probably like gonna feel pretty hungry within an hour because there's no fat in there. Versus if you have some kind of good dressing, maybe it's just olive oil or like an olive oil based dressing, or maybe you have avocado on there, you're going to feel a lot fuller longer. So that keeps us satiated for longer, it keeps us fuller for longer, and kind of helps us get in between meals without feeling hungry an hour after we've eaten. And so we want to aim for more plant-based sources because those are more health promoting. There is room for the animal-based sources, but we're going to focus on the plant-based sources because those have a lot more health benefits. So some examples here are avocado, nuts and seeds, so almonds, cashews, walnuts, peanuts, peanut butter and other nut butters, olive oil, avocado oil, canola oil, different seeds, so like pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, olives. And another great healthy fat example is some of our high fat fishes. So I'm thinking of like salmon and tuna. Those are really good examples of healthy fats. Any questions about fats here? Okay. So next we have this dairy component, and I will say not every meal has to have dairy with it. That's kind of like a, I don't know, that's this plate is modeled off of the USDA's My Plate, which includes dairy, and I won't get into it, but you can take it or leave it. But we can talk about what dairy supplies and how you could incorporate it into your diet. But all I'm saying is if you're eating dinner that doesn't incorporate dairy, that's perfectly okay if you have everything else here. It just gives some added nutrients and it isn't a bad thing to include and can include a lot of great nutrients. So it's a really good source of vitamins A, D, B12, riboflavin, phosphorus, and magnesium. So it's packed with a lot of nutrients, which is why it gets recommended. Um, and so you can have straight up milk. Maybe you like cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is really high in protein and has some really awesome healthy fats in it. Same with yogurt, especially if you're getting like a Greek yogurt. Cheese has some protein in it and is obviously going to have some of these nutrients. And then if you're more plant-based or maybe you don't tolerate dairy well, a good substitute is soy. So soy milk, if you're eating cereal in the morning and you don't enjoy milk, soy milk tastes very similar. Out of all the plant-based milks, it tastes very similar to dairy and it has the most similar like nutrient profile. So there's good healthy fats and protein in there. Or if you're a tofu fan, that can be a good option too, or edamame. So that's why dairy's on here, supplying some really great nutrients. And I encourage you to try to get it into your diet at least once a day if you can, because it kind of supplies a ton of stuff. Next, we have fruit. So we want to try to up our fruit intake if we can. But so fruit comes in all different kinds of forms. I'm sure you can think of so many. There's some listed here, like the classics, apples, bananas, oranges, but there's a ton. Choose your favorite. Fruit is also going to provide fiber, just like our low carbohydrate vegetables. It also has a ton of vitamins and minerals that are good for us. Something I will say is that if you choose fruit as a snack, try to pair it with a protein. So maybe you have like a hard-boiled egg and an apple. Maybe have an apple with peanut butter or banana with peanut butter or some seeds alongside your kiwi. That's gonna help everything kind of just digest better and digest more slowly and help improve our blood sugar. Lastly, we have this dessert component. And so I just wanted to leave this on here because I think a lot of times when we're talking about diabetes, dessert gets left out. It's like, no, you're never allowed to have cake. That's not true. All foods fit. We just have to think about it in moderation. Do we want your whole plate to be cookies upon cookies? Probably not. And you're probably not going to feel very good if you do that. I pretty much guarantee you wouldn't feel good. And maybe if you've ever overeaten a dessert, you know how that feels. And it doesn't feel supportive or good for you, but they can still be included as part of your day. So maybe at the end of the day, you like to have something sweet to end your day. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you have a couple squares of chocolate or a cookie or a slice of cheesecake or something. It fits and it's welcome because you're human. Something to just keep in mind though is that you might want to say you're having a dessert after dinner. you might want to reduce some of this yellow portion so your more high carb foods. So maybe if you're used to having like a full cup of rice at dinner, maybe you have half a cup and then you also enjoy your cookie. And this is just to help regulate your blood sugar so you're not getting too many carbs in a short span of time, if that makes sense. Any questions about dessert? Is anyone surprised that I included this? Because I know it's not the norm most of the time when we're talking about diabetes, but it fits.
I'm glad that you
Yes.
included it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If fruit is good for you because you said it has fiber, then why is it such a small portion in the figure? Is it because of the sugars?
Yes, so fruit, it has a little more carbohydrates, which are sugars, when you break it down, than our low carb vegetables. So if we were thinking about like we can visualize this plate for dinner, we probably wouldn't feel our best based on our blood sugar if like half of our plate was a bunch of strawberries because there are going to be more carbohydrates. And so that's why it's included in a smaller amount because while there still is fiber in it, there's not as much fiber as these low carb vegetables that I shared. So things like broccoli or carrots. And so, as much as it is health promoting and providing us with awesome nutrients, it has a different composition than these low carb veggies. So, still should be included, and it doesn't have to necessarily be included at every single meal. Um, this isn't like a perfect model to follow, but this is just to show like you should get in like a couple of servings of fruit throughout the day as long as it's paired with other foods like protein, maybe some dairy, because it does have a little more carbohydrates. But that's not to say it's bad for you or is even the same nutrient profile as dessert, because it still has things like fiber and vitamins and minerals that like a cookie isn't going to have. Is that helpful for your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. That was a great question. Any other questions while we're here? Okay, we'll move on. So if you're looking for some more structure, this is kind of something you can start to think about, is aiming to get 3 to 5 carbohydrate servings per meal and 2 to 3 per snack. So a serving of carbohydrates is 15 grams of carbs. So if we're aiming for 3 to 5 servings of carbs per meal, that would look like 45 to 75 grams of carbs per meal. And for a snack, that would be 30 to 45 grams of carbs per meal. And so maybe Mari can send this PowerPoint after, so you have this information. But this information is really helpful when you know how to read a food label. And so one of the resources that I also sent, or had Mari send in an email, and I'm sure she'll put it in the chat here too if you didn't get a chance to download it, is how do you read a food label? And so I'm not going to go into it now because there's other topics I want to get to, but feel free to use this resource. I think it's pretty detailed and helpful. And if you would like more support, I'm here for you. So feel free to reach out. Again, my information will be at the end. I'd love to help support you in doing this if you've never read a food label before and maybe that feels confusing to you. And if it does feel confusing, you're not alone and I'm here for you. So again, we can send this PowerPoint and that way you have this helpful information to kind of loosely help you carb count in a more freeing way. It's not too restrictive or anything. And yeah, I can help support you in that if needed at a later time. Okay, so the next part is of this cycle, this mindful eating cycle, is how do I eat? So let's see. So with intention and with attention. So those kind of sound similar. So let's break it down. So with intention is you're eating when you notice those hunger cues. Remember ghrelin. I'm going to drill that into you. Our ghrelin and leptin are hunger and fullness hormones. So use that hunger and fullness scale that Mari put in the chat and that you have in your email to be more intentional as you're eating. Like, what level of hunger am I at? Am I hungry enough to eat right now? Am I feeling too full to get another serving? Just tune in. Intentional eating looks like eating for nourishment. So maybe you recognize that you haven't eaten a vegetable in like 3 days. It happens. We're human. Sometimes we forget to eat veggies, or we're in situations where that just doesn't happen. Maybe you're traveling, and so maybe you go, I'm going to put some extra intention into this meal by prioritizing that plate and visualizing that plate and trying to make half my plate vegetables. And then I think an important mindset to have and to support how do I eat is eating with the goal of feeling better after you finish your meal. So not eating to stuff ourselves and feel gross and feel like we need to lay on the couch after we eat, but trying to eat with the goal of like, I want to feel energized, I want to feel good after this. So let's break down eating with attention. So eating with attention means eliminating or trying to minimize distractions. So maybe you turn off the TV while you're eating so you can really tune into your senses. Maybe you start to tune in to the little details in your meal. What is the ambiance like? Maybe you light a candle and set the mood, make your meal feel more fun. Maybe you use like your fancy cookware and dishware to make it feel more exciting. Maybe you tune into the taste. What am I tasting right now? What does this flavor taste like? How often do we slow down and just embrace that? Like, wow, this meal is really good. I know I don't do that as often as I should. Maybe we tune into the texture. Like, is this crunchy? Is it creamy? What does it smell like? What's the temperature like? And then we listen to our fullness cues. Like, I'm at an 8 right now on this hunger and fullness scale. I think it's time I stop. Or maybe I'm at a 4 and I need to keep eating. I need more. That's eating with attention. And this is how you eat, with intention and attention, which is a total tongue twister. Okay, so the next part of the cycle, how much do I eat? Again, I'm such a broken record today, but use your tools. So use this hunger fullness scale that you have in the chat or in your email. How much do I eat? Well, it depends on how hungry I am. Am I a 2? Then I probably need to eat a lot more to get to a 7 than if I was at a 5 and maybe I just needed a little snack. That is going to tell you, your body is telling you how much you need to eat. You need to tune in. When we tune in and have that mindful piece of like, what am I feeling? What number am I at? How full am I? Use your body's signals and use your tools to tell you how much to eat, because your body really does know best. And I think that's a big theme for today's discussion. Some other supportive questions for how to evaluate fullness. First one, how does my stomach feel? Is there discomfort or pain? Does it feel tight? Can I feel my food in my stomach? Is it sitting heavy? How does my body feel? Am I comfortable and am I feeling content? Do I feel nauseous? Do my clothes feel slightly tighter? Like, are my pants tighter? What are my energy levels like? Am I feeling sluggish? Do I need to lay down and take a nap? Or am I feeling energized and ready to take on whatever I have in front of me? And the last piece is, what's my blood sugar at? Is it really low right now? Then maybe I need to keep eating. Or is it really, really high? And maybe I need to like if it feels like I need to keep eating, maybe I need to up my protein or get some more fiber in. These are really helpful questions to just tune in. Because again, your body really knows. We've gotten away from tuning into those signals. So use your tools. So one of the last parts of this cycle is, where do I invest my energy? And the reason why I think this question is so powerful and impactful is, okay, we went through this whole cycle, like, why, where, what to eat, how much to eat. And now you have energy because you've listened to your body, you've given your body the nourishment that it needs. So where are you going to put that energy? Where does that energy from our food go to? So maybe it's to taking care of your body. Maybe you need sleep. Maybe you ate a really nourishing dinner and now you feel able to rest. I don't know if you've ever tried to go to bed hungry, but those two usually do not pair very well together. Maybe you've just fueled up to go for a hike, or maybe you just need to rest today. Maybe you needed to fuel your body to go meet up with a friend or family and support them in whatever they're going through, or get support back. Maybe you're taking this energy from nourishing yourself and you're pouring it into your soul. So maybe you're journaling, you're providing gratitude for everything that you have in your life, you're meditating, you're taking part in art or whatever you value. Or maybe you're putting that energy into your mind. Maybe you're reading, you're writing, teaching, planning, learning, like we're doing right now. So I really encourage you to think about, as you implement these tools that I'm sharing with you and this information, what are you going to do with this new energy that you have and this energy that you're creating from fueling yourself? So just to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to share a testimony of mindful eating. This comes from the book, and I thought it was really powerful. The author of the book is also a dietitian, and I really resonated with this testimony because it's something I've heard my own patients say in their own words. So I'll just read it for y'all. But I always told myself I couldn't control my diabetes. As I learned more about mindful eating, I realized I needed to love eating more, not less. I ate dinner while I watched TV or read a book, so I could barely remember what I ate, much less how it tasted. I'd finish off a bag of chips without even noticing. When I'd eat something delicious, it was hard to stop. Afterwards, I realized that it had stopped tasting good long before I had stopped eating. I'd feel miserable, and of course, my blood sugar would be high. Mindful eating has opened a world of possibilities. I don't eat mindlessly out of habit anymore. I try new foods and new recipes because I love the experience. I actually savor my food as I eat now. I don't eat as much, but I love it more. And so I just love this. I feel like I can just see the difference of working on mindful eating for this person's diabetes. Like, they feel more in control and just more at peace with food. They're not at war with their body anymore. They're embracing their body, embracing what's going on with their condition that they have, and they don't see it as a bad thing. They just start like using it as an opportunity to care for their body more. And I think that's really beautiful. And I encourage you all to explore what changes you see as you move through this cycle and this information that I shared with you, and start to use the tools. I love to hear like testimonies, and I'm sure Mari and Morgan will be super excited to kind of hear each of your testimonies at the end of this course. So that's all I have for you. We moved through that whole cycle, and I know I provided a lot of information. So I just encourage you to take what you need, leave what you don't.